Welcome back to This Week in Rideshare podcast. I am the man losing my voice. I'm Steve, Rideshare Rodeo, and my co-host, Kim Side Money Plans. How are you, Kim?
I am good. How are you? Besides you losing your voice.
I'm great. In fact, I feel fine. It's just my voice. It's so annoying, you know. I would hate to say that I want to be. I mean, I should be sick if I'm going to have a voice like this, but I don't feel sick at all. This is really annoying. This is really annoying. Um, but anyway, Kim and I have been doing this for a few weeks. Thank you all for joining. We have come really close to helping the Legal Rideshare team get to 500 subs. They're at, I think it was 19 this morning, shy when I looked. So this is our push with you guys. Go sub, even if like you've been watching this and you've meant to, or if you went and liked a video, go sub, because next week we're going to do another one. And then after that, we'll see what happens. But we're going to be pointing you guys to watch their videos too. And you're going to want to get alerted. And they only drop the one a week. And the other thing is we've helped their views grow too. So go give them views, because we all know that it's not just you viewing it, but when you view it, when you like it, it moves it into the algorithm a little more. And that's what these guys need. Because when I look at their titles, sometimes I have to think, and maybe Kim, maybe you have a 2 cents on this one, but I have to think that now I've gone through and I've looked, they don't use the company names. That gets very tricky. And I'm guessing it's because they're lawyers. It's not like us when we make a video and we're like DoorDash tonight, like they say like rideshare, or they say a single word that we all can associate to it, but the algorithm might not be grabbing.
Yeah, the algorithm's such a weird thing, but also make sure you comment, because that's another thing that helps any video or any live out comment, because it really works with the engagement. So say Kim and Steve sent you, or just make a comment on what they're talking about. That really helps them out as well. So yeah, I don't
Because
know.
yeah,
I don't know
exactly.
the
We've
behind
got the people
everything.
coming there to help them. We've new people. I've seen it in their comments. But even if every week you're like, what am I supposed to comment every week? I don't have a new comment every week. If you don't have a specific comment on the topics, just comment thanks. Anything that helps it move, because we need to get it seen by more people. All the people that we're turning on to it are loving it. But that means there's a lot of people who are not familiar.
No, I think it's good information. That's the thing. I feel like it's really good information that, it's more the kind of the back end of things that like you don't normally think about as a gig worker, that it makes you like really think like, oh, really? Like that's what I really like about it.
Yeah. And yeah, it is. That's my point. So I think that a lot of it is that, I mean, because I know this too. It, real quick, for any of you who don't know, like if I make a rideshare video on Lyft and then I do one on Uber, the Uber one will do better because the Uber recognition name goes a lot farther. If I do an Uber video and then I do a DoorDash, the DoorDash will go farther in the United States, because that is what's watched the most. So when they leave these names out all the time, for whatever reason, I'm sure they have their reasons. It's just not grabbing the algorithm. But if enough people like it and stuff, it'll get into the algorithm, because then it sees what else you watch, and it starts molding it. And that's all they need. And I think we're already generating that kickstart. And I think we continue to do that. So real quick, Legal Rideshare has been helping drivers for 10 years now. Tons of different ways. If you are hurt doing gig work, driving, picking up to passengers, food at a restaurant, at a drop-off, dog attacks, at any point while you are working the gig app platforms, contact Legal Rideshare first. You don't even need, you're going to need to contact your insurance and other people, but contact them first, because they might have a couple words of wisdom or how to word something to your insurance company or whatever. And it sucks that that's the world we live in, but it is. And so why not take their free consultation, which they give? They have more experience in this space than any of the attorneys that I know who are starting to do this stuff. Hopefully you'll never need to, but just in case, always keep their information with you, and make sure, like we said, go subscribe to Legal Rideshare. It's in the description. They only do 3 topics in a 20-minute session every week. And like Kim was saying, there's a lot to be learned. So, in fact, go to the video today, like it, subscribe, say hello. Just say hello if you're out of ideas. Hi.
They're so nice too, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have not been I think they appreciate this about us though, is that we've been straight up with them on not, and like Kim said, they're great with information. But even like I saw, like they often refer to boots on the word more the boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Like they've got it from the lawyer standpoint and they understand what's going on, but they need to hear from us too, and you guys too, and everybody. That's why the comments are important. Don't think they're not reading them. They're reading them and they're really bringing them in. So, this is not DoorDash support, guys. These guys are actually trying to help.
They're the real deal.
Anyway, so Kim, do you want to hit those points and before we move any farther and before I lose my voice?
Absolutely. I know Steve just mentioned it. Just make sure you save their contact information in your phone. I hope you never have to use it, but I would rather you have it in case you do need it than not have it at all. And not only that, they are getting drivers to take a survey. This is really important. You guys have a chance to win $100 gift card. It's an easy survey to take. It doesn't take that long at all. It's free. So go. It's going to be in the link in this description as well. So go take the survey. They need as much information as possible because that's how they're gathering their information. So go check it out.
And the last thing I would add to that is, you guys, what a great, hopefully you never need it, but what a great way to introduce yourself to them, because if you take the survey, they don't share your information, they're lawyers.
No.
However, your email's in their system. So they'll recognize you if you ever need them as, that guy took our survey. Just saying, never hurts to make a friend.
That was a good point there, Steve. I never thought about that. That's a good point.
Not saying they won't help you if you don't. I'm just saying it's like, now it'll make you even feel easier about contacting them, I think.
Yeah.
Because you've already made contact in a way. So, but we're going to jump in. We got 3 topics here this week.
And from Legal Rideshare, I'm joined by the co-founder and lead attorney, Bryant Greening. Bryant, happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday, Jared. Good to be back. A little early this week, but better early than never, I suppose.
Better early than never. Yeah, I will be actually fishing in Baltimore this weekend, starting tomorrow. So I'll be out of the office, but of course, happy to listen and talk to viewers and listeners. So don't hesitate to reach out, regardless. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome. I hope you get some big catches out there.
Yes, likewise. I'm not a great fisherman, but you got to start somewhere, right?
Right.
So just like we did last week, I want to start with the viewer comments. I think that's a good way to start. It's typically a response to the stories from last week. So we're going to begin with the first one here. Let me pop it up. This is from Grubhub Gab. She said, Steve is correct. New York City rideshare is destroyed since I have to pay all the time on the app. So app on, you get paid. So now drivers can barely get a few drive blocks in a week, and that's only for the top drivers. Part-time drivers cannot get a lot of hours during the week. The second comment we have here is from Be My Own Boss podcast, longtime rodeo listener and now new Legal Rideshare subscriber. So thank you guys so much for that. And as Gab said, I know this was something that they talked about, Brian, about New York City and the rideshare and the app on. I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that. I know Steve weighed in when we talked about it. I don't know if you have a response to what he said and what she said.
I appreciate everybody's comments on it. It's such a dynamic situation here where we're seeing new information coming in, where what's going on in New York is uncharted territory. The fact that they were blocking accounts, the fact that they are now changing the way that everything's working. I think it's just it's a work in progress, and we're going to see how it all plays out. Obviously, Gab is telling us that it's not playing out well, which seems to be expected, unfortunately. It's an ongoing situation. I want to keep gathering information, and hopefully we keep getting comments on it, because you guys are the ones on the ground. We can comment from afar, but I want to know how it's affecting you, what you're seeing, if there's any good, if it's all bad, just how bad it is. Please keep us updated, because we want to keep talking about it. We want to keep advocating for you, and you are our pipeline. You know, you're the reason we're doing this. You are on the street, so please keep feeding us information.
Yeah, well said. And we're going to dive right into the first story of this week. One of the biggest issues gig workers face is actually educating gig workers. This is from Forbes, and they explain, quote, while self-employment in the gig economy promises freedom and flexibility, they come with significant costs. Given that a majority of Americans cannot answer basic financial literacy questions, that leaves about 5 million Americans left to navigate the landscape of self-employment in the dark. That also goes in to say that it's easy to forget that gig workers routinely are forced to work with broken limbs and severe illness in order to put food on the table. A recent study found that 1 in 5 gig workers lives in a household where someone avoided a doctor or hospital visit because of the cost, while the Economic Policy Institute found that nearly 1 in 5 workers went hungry in the last month. 30% of gig workers use SNAP to pay for groceries, and nearly a third cannot pay all their monthly utility bills. Brian, this is something that we know very well. We talk to these drivers, gig workers, constantly, so it's not news to us, but certainly tragic. And you, obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so this article really hits on a couple different topics. One is the financial literacy or lack thereof by a lot of gig workers, and the other is just the dire straits that gig workers find themselves in. And I want to hit on both of those points. First, when we talk about economic and financial literacy, it's really problematic that so many people find themselves in this new area of work. They leave traditional jobs where things like taxes are kind of taken care of. They pulled out of the paycheck. Things like health insurance often are part of the job. And they leave for flexibility. They leave for being their own boss and having an opportunity to really handle your own business, for lack of a better word. The problem with that is the gig companies provide no information, provide no resources for people to make honest assessments of their situations, to understand what goes into being your own boss and having your own business, because ultimately that's what this is. And people are finding themselves in really bad situations as a result thereof. So just for example, if you're working an entirely gig work job, you're a 1099 worker, you have responsibility for paying your own taxes at the end of the year. And if you're not setting aside money to do that, you might find yourself with a large tax bill and not know how to handle it. The other component of that is having to pay for things like healthcare, not having employer-sponsored health programs. So I would really love to see the gig companies take more responsibility for educating workers, providing resources for workers so they know exactly what they're getting into before they get into the work. This can be a great line of work for a lot of people depending on various circumstances, but they need to know the ins and outs of self-employment, of taking care of your finances, of taking care of yourself, making sure that you have all your ducks in a row. Really, there could be a whole new sector of financial planning based on this. There should be people who are specialized in gig work and gig planning. But right now, we're seeing a lot of people fall through the cracks because there's just not enough information out there. The second component of it is when things do go wrong, gig workers are left with very few resources and outcomes. So you mentioned that there's a lot of people who are still seeking and requiring government assistance for food, working when they're injured or sick. And it's one of those hazards of the job where you're kind of always required to be available, because if you're not working, you're not earning. And another aspect of the financial literacy would be, maybe have an occupational hazard policy or a rainy day fund, or there's various ways that you can combat that. But unfortunately, a lot of gig workers haven't tapped into those resources or don't have or aren't making enough to do those things, and they're finding themselves in very, very tough situations when things go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that you have been an advocate of for a long time. Being a resource for drivers, because as you discovered early on, and then we sort of all really became aware of, just like you said, there's a lack of understanding what's really involved as a gig worker. Like you said, holding money for taxes, when you are and when you're not covered on your insurance. It's something that we deal with constantly. We'll have drivers call us and say, "Look, I got into an accident." And then we ask them some of the basic questions, and they didn't know any of that stuff was needed, like collision coverage. They didn't realize that if you you delay going to a doctor, it's going to affect if you can file a suit. And so I agree. This almost needs its own new area of expertise, because this isn't a small amount of people. Every single year we do these studies, and we read about these studies. Rideshare gig work is growing. It's just getting bigger every year, and they really need support. They need kind of an area that can say, okay, this is what you have to deal with. It's really crucial. And I know that, again, Brian, you've been an advocate of it. You go around all of Illinois and sometimes across the country to talk about this stuff with drivers, whether it's by Zoom or in person. And I think it's really needed.
Yeah, and there's resources out there. Like, we work often with the Independent Drivers Guild of Illinois. I know that they help drivers understand these facts. They are a resource for them. We try to be a resource, but ultimately, I would like the companies to step up and provide more information. And when you're starting your own company, when you're working for yourself, you've got to be proactive as well. So that there's information out there if you look for it, if you do the Google searches, if you read the books. It's a lot to ask of somebody who is just trying to make a buck, but ultimately you've got to take steps to protect yourself. And I wish the resources were more readily available. I wish they were pushed forward by Uber, Lyft, and the other companies. But I urge everyone to educate yourself, because ultimately, if things go wrong, it's going to go wrong for you. So that there has to be some responsibility that you take to ensure that you're doing everything that you can to protect yourself if and when things go awry.
Yeah, absolutely. And well said.
I got a lot to say, but luckily with my voice going out, Kim takes the first one. So Kim's going to go.
I feel like I have a lot to say too, but I'll try to keep it as short as possible. I feel as though a lot of times gig workers go into the gig economy without learning it and without understanding your own lifestyle. Before, like, I feel like they just jump right in, right? They just like want to start making money, but they don't analyze, like, what is your cost of living? How much a day am I going to spend in gas? How much am I going to take out for taxes? Every day I take out money for a car fund, because it's not a matter of if your car is going to go into a shop. It's a matter of when your car is going to go into shop. Like, there's different things. Like, I take money out for a Robinhood account, like taxes, like there's stuff that comes out every single day that I feel like a lot of times drivers don't think of this as a business. They think of it as quick money and not think of it that it is a business, and you need to be financially responsible. If you're not financially responsible, then you're going to lose. You're not going to win. And I think that's the disconnect. I mean, I agree with Brian that he thinks that these companies should educate drivers. That's just not, honestly, how many times do we talk about these companies? They're not going to do anything. Like, they're here to facilitate the orders. They're not here to educate the drivers. Like, they just want to get orders delivered. They care about making money. Do they honestly care about drivers? I'll be honest. You guys can fill in the blank on that one. But honestly, it's never going to happen. It's honestly up to the drivers, in Brian's point, to make and be informed and do your own research. And I think that's where the falter is. But I agree with Brian on a lot of the things that he said. I just think drivers need to be financially responsible as well.
Yeah, I do too. And I'm gonna bounce all the way back, because I do need to say that I think that even though they brought up a comment by somebody who I see in the chat sometimes and said that I was right. It's not about me being right. It's that we just saw it different ways. I think that when I was listening to them talking about that though in the beginning, it seems like we're both heading to the same thing that we again talk about all the time, oversaturation. It really kind of tipped it with that. Like that's where we'll meet and always agree. You bring that down, things will start to settle. I can't say the companies will go, okay, now we can pay you 10 times as much. I don't think that'll happen. And then to your point about how they're never going to do this, they're never going to say, hey, here's what you need to know, here's the taxes. You got to remember, we live in the United States, and in the United States, we are independent contractors on all of these apps. Now, they are in Europe as well, and I'm going to hit on something real quick, but here in the United States, an independent contractor is completely at his own resolve to make sure he knows everything about the business. So even when Uber or Lyft or DoorDash or any of them make it appear like, hey, we're telling you this one thing, and then they put up these new features and you're like, well, they told us that thing, so if they put up these features, they must be legal. Again, they play it all the time. If they feel like they can tell you and they're not going to have any backfire, they'll tell you. If they feel like there could be any backfire, they're just going to, you should know this. Now, in a nutshell, in the UK, to become a black cab driver takes 3 years.
Oh, wow.
You have to know every location in London and the surrounding area by name without a map. You have to be able to be educated to teach people about these things. Cab drivers need to go to the same TNC licensing place, but it doesn't take 3 years. It's a shorter run. And a few years back, before the pandemic even, they made it so that rideshare drivers have to go for, I think it's 3 or 4 days. And they have to learn all of what comes with this. Safety, putting one, like you guys are, here's your tax situation now, all of it. So they do a lot of things over there that we don't do that seem to make a lot of sense. They even have the RF readers on a badge with your picture on it so that a person can tell that they're at the car. I mean, like, why aren't we doing these things? Because again, you're an independent contractor over there too. So I don't know why we're always, I feel like every week, Kim, we're like talking about like, why is this? Why? And they can even be new things, but they're things that could be solved so easy.
Agreed. They just choose not to. That's the thing. Like a lot of times when we talk about this, like they have the technology and we know they have the technology because it's rolled out in either other parts of the country or in another country altogether, especially with Uber Eats and stuff that's like more, has more countries underneath their belt, but they have it. They're just not using it in places where they need to use it.
Right. Yeah. And so I guess that one was titled literacy. I would say that's a tough one to title. So you guys, I guess just kind of take a check on yourself is what I'd say, because this also comes at a weird time because I've been talking with people not in the gig economy, people in the gig economy both, and everybody's struggling right now. So taking this like challenge to see how you're budgeting, also factor in that things are hard right now. So, I mean, even your W-2 and stuff, it might not be cutting it. So, but yeah, you need to have some kind of gauge on what you're doing or else you're just going to be spinning your wheels. No pun intended. And then topic 2 that we have, let's see what it is.
We're going to head off into the second story of the day. Uber drives into AV as Tesla is hot on its tail. This is from TechCrunch. And they reported, quote, Uber said in its second quarter results statement that the number of trips performed by an autonomous vehicles rose 6x from the year earlier. Up from that, the company didn't say. And the first thing Uber highlighted in its presentation deck was AVs in a section titled Autonomous Vehicle Spotlight. It detailed how the ride-hail and delivery giant has the right utilization, consumer experience, and go-to market expertise to drive the greatest value for AV partners. Recently, Tesla CEO Elon Musk has repeatedly described Tesla's future robotaxi network as having a similar business model to Uber and Airbnb, where Tesla owners could add their properly equipped vehicles to the car maker's own ride-sharing app. So, Brian, every week I feel like we're talking about this. Every week it seems to be progressing. And I'll say, if it's getting this close, and I don't know, all I can say is, I'm old enough to remember when Uber said they weren't interested in AV, and it's certainly changed. They clearly are saying we need to get in this.
It's coming, and we spent a lot of time talking about AV safety and how the technology is probably not ready to be out on the streets. I think what this article is really highlighting is that it's coming, and it's basically here. So whether it's ready or not, be on the lookout for autonomous vehicles on your street sometime soon. They have been expanding throughout California and in various other cities around the country. I'm hearing anecdotally that people are actually preferring to take the autonomous vehicle, that they like the experience of not having a driver in the car. They feel like it's more private. They feel like they can be on the phone or FaceTiming somebody and have a more intimate experience rather than having the stranger driver, for lack of a better term, as part of the ride. I don't think that we're at a point where drivers are going to be excluded from rideshare. I certainly hope not. I know that a lot of people have changed their lives to be a part of this economy, but day by day, week by week, year by year, we are getting closer to AVs taking over rideshare. I don't know if it will ever be fully autonomous vehicles, but it seems like it's right on our doorstep, and it's an interesting story to watch, because maybe a year ago, it didn't seem like we were anywhere close to this. It seemed like they were still in testing phases, and now they have been deployed.
Yeah, I mean, a year ago, if we even talked about it, it was joking about how they were showing their the test tracks, and it was hitting cones and fake dogs and fake kids, and it seemed 10 years away, and now it's not. And like you said, now it's here. I do think it's interesting. Obviously, competition always drives competition, right? So with Tesla really trying to announce, whether it's accurate or not, that look, we're ready for this, we're going to create our own Uber-like network, that definitely jarred Uber into action, and to say, okay, well, we can't sit in the sidelines if they're going to be that close to us. It's also going to be interesting because Uber and Tesla have a unique relationship to begin with. A lot of Uber drivers, they have that rental program. So I don't know if it's gonna be competing or accelerate AV driving. I'm not quite sure. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
We'll certainly see how their relationship pans out, but I know that we've got two of the most innovative companies in the world laser focused on putting autonomous vehicles out there. So as you mentioned, these things tend to drive each other. We've got Tesla, we've got Uber. I know that Waymo is out there. So as the competition gets an uptick and how everybody is competing with one another to put the product out first, I do think we're going to have a rush to put vehicles on the road. I'm a little scared about that. And two, the technology will just continue to improve. They will push each other. They will scrap to be the best, and maybe we're going to get there sooner than we thought. It certainly appears that way.
Yeah, like you said, they're definitely going to do it. They could be reckless about it, and if they are, I mean, that's why we're here. So we will see, and I'm sure next week we're going to have another story about this, another development.
Okay, Steve, your favorite topic ever.
Oh my gosh. And they don't lay these out for us guys, but if you're wondering how did Steve get the autonomous one, I don't know, but I'm going to take advantage of this, because in 2018 or 2017, one of the two, regardless, was when the woman in Phoenix was in the front of an autonomous Uber and it killed a person. So for 6 years, they've been killing people. This is not last year. I know that Jared said it is last year they deployed. No, they've been deployed in San Francisco, Phoenix Metro, and yes, they're in LA and now Cruise has been kicked out of the 2 cities in California and some other things. So they're still not everywhere, but they've been like, let's use Phoenix. They've been operating in Phoenix for 8 years, 9 years, and they don't work for 9 years. So thank God there are not many of these, because they operate at a 65% efficiency rate. They don't work in the snow. They don't work in heavy rain. They have to follow longer paths to get you A to B, so you can't really shortcut things. When it does come, it will be a slower rollout. We're nowhere close yet. I know that some of the GM went from level 4 autonomous and back down to level 3, more like road assist to get you back on, and parking assist, more of those type features, and really getting those dialed in. They have said forget it about moving to level 5 with Cruise. They're not going to do that, not even close at this time. So I do think, here's how I do feel though. One thing that I need to say about this is that, so he was saying, 2 of the biggest companies are doing this, Waymo and Uber. I just need to say this because there was a time when VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing, and autonomous were departments at Uber. And I'm sure they still have a person or two in there, but they're not actually a big testing facility, Uber, where they're testing autonomous. I will tell you that I do believe that Uber will be the best way to market the first company that gets to full autonomous, but it won't be Uber. The leaders in the field are Waymo, Alphabet. You got Bolt, you got Cruise. I mean, you got real companies who really know about autonomous. Uber basically even took the name Technologies out of their name when they went public, because they were being so accused of what technology. You guys don't have any tech. You're a dispatch company, plain and simple. And so they're not designing autonomous. They're relying on the backs of some other companies. And when Tesla fell, it was the 3rd time that Uber said, and Kim, you know this, we've been talking about this for years, Uber has had autonomous and then they sold it off. They never even, that's always been weird to me, because they didn't even have really autonomous, and then they'd sell it off. What are you selling off? Like just Kim and my information? Because you don't have any autonomous information. You're not designing cars. But I do believe that when Tesla slipped about a month and a half ago with their autonomous, had some issues. That's when Uber for the 3rd time said, okay, we're back in it. No, that doesn't work that way, guys. But I do believe that when autonomous is reached, a company like Bolt in Germany, and I'm not saying they're going to be the first, but I'm also not saying it, because that kid, when he started Bolt, was 20 years old, the CEO, and that company's moving as quick as any of the others. He is so ahead of his time. And so, like, let's say it is Bolt. If it's Bolt first that comes up with it, most people don't even know the name Bolt. So he's going to rely on an Uber to really get it out there. So I think they're going to just piggyback when it happens.
Only thing I have visions. Like if we went to a world which they were saying that, drivers go away and we're all autonomous, like I just had this like adult version of bumper cars in my head. Just because of
Yep.
all the crashes that they've done with people and kids and sidewalks and everything else. Like I just have like this vision of bumper cars with autonomous vehicles in my head.
Well, probably because Jared said in there too, he's like, we've known for years they hit fake people, fake dogs, fake kids.
I'm telling
Like,
you, it's bumper cars, adult bumper cars.
yeah, it is. It is. Or it's like, the kids claiming points, like how much to hit that guy. 100 points, like it's like a game to Uber. Like I honestly I don't know. If I was Uber, I wouldn't even want to stamp my name on that. I'd be more focused on getting things dialed and getting the customer base happy, because why get them excited about something that literally full, complete autonomous is at least 10 years, 15 years out? Why be dealing with that when you have internal problems in every state and you're in a million lawsuits? Why don't you just start fixing some things instead of pretending you're in the space?
Agreed.
I am so sick, and I know you are, Kim, too, of Uber claiming every time there's they started again. Note, people, they restarted the autonomous program 3 weeks before their earnings call. Come on. Come on,
They're
we
not.
all know
They're not
we've been, maybe
stupid.
a lot of you haven't, but we've all been through this enough where it's like whatever.
I don't know. I think we said this before, and I apologize if we're going to say it again because I feel like we do talk about this a lot. That it it's always who's going to do it first, right? It's always who's going to have the first technology, who's going to do it first, and really, do they really care about safety, accidents, people getting hurt, people dying, like bots going through crime scenes? Like they don't
Mhm.
care honestly about any of that stuff. They only really care about I was the first to do it and I'm known as the first person to use this technology. And it's not always the best technology that works and that's more efficient.
No, and before we move on to this last story, I'll just add when we're trying to be careful about our wording, I'm just gonna outright say it. We know for a fact, I think Kim will agree with this, that when they do get to an autonomous car, first of all, they cost so much, guys. They're about 500 grand, and they don't work. So you got parts that don't work all over them. But when we do get there, Uber will care 100 times more for the AI driver than a human driver. Because at that point, they're going to have real money invested in these cars. And
Yeah.
so they'll actually be like, we actually care if that car gets hit. Right now, they don't
Mm.
care. We're in our
500,000
cars
a
and they don't care.
driver. 500,000 a driver.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, they just don't care about people. I mean, Bryant won't say that. Jared won't say that, but I know they have their moments of thinking it. And I know that's why they fight the good fight. And that's why Kim and I actually like working with these guys because, we don't have to agree with every word. In fact, we have good conversations with them. But to be honest, they are out there fighting the fight. They do understand a lot of the legal stuff that we definitely don't. And they do know kind of they've got their thumb, their thumb on the beat here. But this is they just don't want to straight up come out and say it, but I'll say it. Uber doesn't, these companies don't care about us drivers. They don't. And when there's a trickle down where like maybe there's going to be a little more money, that if you really go and deep dive it, I think you'll find that there's a bigger reason for the company that's helping them when they do that. That's really not, it's never about the driver ever. I mean, and with that, I'll say it's not even about the customer anymore. We're seeing that all over too. I've never known of businesses who can not take care of their customers and still do well. It's
Considering those are
unbelievable.
the ones who keep your company going. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. But let's see what this third story is. Obviously, they talk about it a lot too, and that's what makes it really fun to talk about because the autonomous stuff. Yeah, I've heard too many. And again, guys, if you're new, I got to say, like, we've had, it'll be in this year 3-4 times from Uber. 2020, full autonomous drivers are not needed anymore. 2022, 2024, 2028. Like these dates they're just throwing a dart at a wall. There's not even scientific facts, nothing.
So don't panic yet. We're good.
Yeah, you're good at least for 15
We're good.
years.
We're
Maybe we can
good.
talk about it in 15 years. But I think that he's right in that we will start seeing it for some things. You might see it on like a short ride from A to B in one area. But again, I think it's just market testing. It's not real.
I just had like almost a heart attack when you said we'll talk about this in like 15 years. I'm thinking, oh my God, I'll be how old at that point?
Well, I'll never be taking one. I took one in Vegas and the wheel broke. And the guy had to come out and get a wrench and pull the wheel out. So they're junk. And people have sex in them. They trash them. There's nobody to clean them in between them. So it's just like, it's
Sanitary.
yeah. I mean, like, we don't ever, these are the kind of issues you really need to think about. Like, okay, well, what if they do get there? Okay, well, how are they going to clean out the puke in between one rider and another? You know what I mean? And this is not something where, well, that only happens once in a million. No, that happens a lot after 2 a.m. And with a driver, somebody who's on the verge of throwing up might try not to. If they're in an autonomous, they're just going to puke.
Ew.
They're going to treat it like a trash can. So Good luck, Uber, with your $1 million cars and getting rid of people, but it will never work. Fact.
Mic
Move to the
drop,
last
boom.
story.
This leads us to our final story of the week. Lyft goes big on curbing surge pricing. This is from TechCrunch, and they reported, quote, the ride-hail giant Lyft will pilot a new feature called Price Lock that will let a rider purchase a monthly subscription that, quote, caps the price for a specific route at a specific time. This is according to the CEO of Lyft. The feature is designed to address the inconsistencies of surge pricing, particularly for commuters who use the Lyft app every day. As part of Lyft's broader plan to, quote, open up a can of whoop ass on prime time, Rideshare said Wednesday during Lyft's second quarter earnings call. Over the past year, Lyft has made an effort to reduce the number of rides impacted by surge pricing. He also noted that on a quarterly basis, that number declined by 25%, which he said contributes to better conversion rates. So obviously, Brian, you might be thinking the same thing I'm thinking. They're adding a second subscription service. They're capping, price lock. Does it help drivers? Is there anything in there that's going to help them with this pricing? I'm assuming no.
I don't think that the drivers are the focus of this, and ultimately we would like to see Lyft take more action to put more money in drivers' pockets, take a bigger percentage of the fees that are charged to riders, because we've seen a huge discrepancy in what riders are paying and what drivers are making. So that would be the number one thing I would be asking them to do and to focus on. With regard to this subscription service, we have seen these subscriptions come and go over the past decade. It seems like Uber and Lyft are always trying to find a way to get people to pay a monthly fee, regular money coming out of people's bank accounts and into the company's pockets, and they always seem to go by the wayside. There's been a couple subscription services that have lasted longer than others. We'll see how this one goes. Being in Chicago, when you're requesting a ride during rush hour times, it can be crazy prices for riders. So I certainly could see some benefit here in putting a cap on that, depending on what the subscription costs. If it's any more than a couple bucks a month, I don't know that it's worth it. But we'll see. I can see benefits here for the riders. I don't know that it really helps the drivers one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm reading right now. It says at the moment, Price Lock will be cost under $5 monthly. But like you said, you see these subscriptions come and go. It also states that they also have a membership called Lyft Pink, and this does not overwrite that or grandfather you in. So you would actually end up having two subscription services for Lyft. Yeah, like you said, I think they're just kind of throwing stuff to the wall to see what works. I do agree. Yeah, during surge, they can get real crazy prices. So I understand to combat it for the riders. But again, where does that leave the drivers? If there's not a demand, are drivers even going to want to do it? Is it going to be worth the money? I don't know. And this is like super new. So I don't even know ultimately when this is going to come out or get deployed, and what the response is going to be.
Yeah, and one thing that we've seen in the past, just to talk about surge pricing, is they might charge a rider $70 for a ride, and the driver's not making anywhere near that amount. So surge pricing, I think, has a much harsher effect on riders than it does in the inverse of putting money in drivers' pockets. So I like the idea that we would be capping surge prices. I think that will actually drive more demand to the Lyft app, maybe making more rides available for drivers, because a rider, I think, would balk at oftentimes at a surge price and choose not to take the ride. As long as the driver is making a comparable amount of money to what he or she always does for a 5 p.m. ride on a Tuesday, then this seems like a fine program. I want to see how much of a benefit it really has for the riders. I want to see an analysis of, is the monthly fee of $4.99 or whatever it is actually worth it? Is it saving the rider money? And is there any negative effect on the driver? These will all be questions that will be answered sooner than later as Lyft starts this program. But right now we have to ask the questions because we want to put them in people's minds so that they pay attention to it as this thing's rolled out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's going to be a lot of questions, like you said. And obviously, they're often very good at just kind of rolling these things out and pushing them out before these questions are answered. So we'll just keep track. I think that's one of the cool things about This Week in Rideshare, because we do it every week. We really see the progress of the stuff. We're on it. And so I'm sure by the time this gets deployed, within a week or two, we'll start getting responses and seeing what drivers think. And we would love to hear what you guys think once it rolls out, riders or drivers, and see what's going on out there. That's really important. But that is our story. So Brian, I'm going to give you the final say before we head off and sign off for the early weekend, for me at least.
Yeah, well, as always, we remind everybody to contact Legal Rideshare immediately if you're in an accident or injured on the job. We represent drivers, riders, victims, anybody who's injured in a rideshare related event. Please don't hesitate to contact us. Time is of the essence. Claims do not get better over time. We want to set you up with a solid foundation and make sure that you get compensated for everything you're entitled to, whether it's medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, you name it. Please contact us. LegalRideshare.com is the best way to find all of our contact information. And consultations are always free, so there's simply no reason to hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you, Bryant. And as I like to say, that is the end of This Week in Rideshare. See you next week.
So Kim, what did you think about this? And obviously, before you answer, I'm sure you're gonna, but you can obviously take this subscription thing into food and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not a rideshare person, so I don't know about fees or anything like that. I don't feel like I can't talk intelligently about that, but I do agree with Brian and also with Jared that I feel as though this is solely for the customer, right? Like it's more of a convenience, but the customer is now paying a subscription for the convenience. So I guess it's up to them whether they think it's worth it or not. But the driver is not going to see any of this
No.
extra money that they're putting into place. Like to me, it's another ploy for a company to gain more money in their pockets and nothing go to the driver. That's what all these programs usually are about, is like how much more money can we get from the customer to put in our pockets, and they're going to stay in our pockets so we can report hopefully a gain, or we can report that we did something fantastic, and it's all about the customer, and then the driver gets screwed. I feel like the driver always gets screwed no matter which way you look at it.
Yeah. So I made a couple notes here too, because what I will say is that yes, the driver, I agree. So we all agree on this one. The driver will see nothing more, period. That won't happen. None of these type programs are even designed to help the driver. Even when they're in the room making the idea, that the driver isn't even spoken of. This is how to make more money for the company. But here's my problem with it too. So when they charge these fees, and then they don't say it won't surge, they say that it'll be capped. So what they do is they make sure they're going to make the same amount. They can look at their analytics are definitely one of the top things that they have to offer. Their analytics can look through things and find everything they need to know about a person and their habits and everything. And if they see, okay, well, this person here, let's get him in a subscription. He'll pay $9.99 a month, and he'll think he's getting a discount. Here would be my challenge. If you have one of those programs for a year, did you save money? Because I don't think you do. I really don't think you do. I think it's more, and the only other thing that they have, if you did save a little, the reason you're saving that little is because they know that if you're paying the subscription to Lyft or Uber or even a DoorDash or whatever, that you're very likely not going to do price comparison. You're just going to open that app and use it because you're paying for a monthly service. So that's going to become your default. You're not going to do a price check. But I do want to mention one thing too on this, that Rocket Money, I hope it's Rocket Money, I think it is, that looks at all your subscriptions. Is that the one?
I think so.
Like you put in your,
remember.
I don't know how it works,
Yeah.
but it tells you so you can find hidden subscriptions and cancel it. I was reading an interesting article in NerdWallet the other day, so I found it really funny that they just talked about this. DoorDash is the number one canceled on Rocket Money.
Interesting.
So what I have a feeling about that is that's how I feel about, like, I am totally against auto renew. I
Yeah.
hate auto renewals, and especially for something big that I might have purchased that I said, okay, I'm definitely not going to continue that next year. Maybe it's being charged once a year or whatever. And then it just comes out of your account and you're like, wait, I didn't want that anymore. I haven't even used it in 3 months, kind of thing, or that. Like, I hate those kind of things. And so I have a feeling that the reason it is the number one canceled is because people are going, why am I paying this? When I order DoorDash, it's too much as it is. What does the subscription do for me? And they're beyond a point of wanting somebody to even explain it to them. It's not like, can you tell me what this is doing for me? It's more like, why am I doing this? I don't want to do this anymore. And if you came along from DoorDash and said, well, here's why, they'd say, no, you get out of my face. I'm canceling it. Stupid. I mean, I just don't think people want to be locked into these. If you're going to have rates keep going up at the rate that they are, you can't have a subscription model too.
No.
Unless you're going to save your people a lot of money, and they can't do it.
Yeah. Unless you use something like every single day, or you actually get entertainment out of it, like a Netflix or a Paramount. Like, I'm not saying to do everything, but unless you get something in it for you, subscriptions, what do they really like? They literally just kind of suck money out of you. So everybody, I think, needs to be careful of the subscriptions that they have in life, and whether it actually adds value to your daily life or adds value to your life in general. I think that's kind of how you have to evaluate what subscriptions are good versus bad, and how much are you really paying on them.
Yeah. Yeah. I fully agree. And I mean, like, I saw DoorDash's was, I don't know, I think they might have different ones too, but I saw on when they showed it in the Nerd Wallet article, it said $9.99. It was at the top of the list. It said canceled. And so I know that that's where it begins, just $9.99 a month. And we would have to do a dive into what that is. But as we're running out of time here, Kim, do you want to hit that the plug to subscribe, and then I'll
Yeah,
do the last piece.
absolutely. So everyone, don't forget to go check out Legal Rideshare's YouTube channel. Go right now. Make a comment, say Kim and Steve sent me, or you see something that you want to comment on the video, please go put it on their page. And also make sure that you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are trying to get them to that 500 mark. They are so close. So we just need like that final push to really get them to that 500 mark. And also, don't forget, I know Steve put it in the ticker, but also make sure that you put it in your phone. Make sure you have all their contact information, telephone numbers, their website, their email address. Always have it in your phone. You just never know. And don't forget to take that survey so you can hopefully win $100.
Yeah. And yeah, and I would say, guys, well, you look, if even just the continue rate continues, they'll be at 500 before we're here next week again. So also their views are going up. Let's see it get to a triple count view this week on
That'd be amazing.
on their video. And you guys, if here's something I think is a good idea. If you're watching this and then you go over there and like that one and just are supporting, very appreciated. But instead of leaving a comment with Kim or I this week, leave your comments over there, even if it's to this video. I'm just because they're gonna we'll get back to you too, but they're gonna get back to you on the topic, and they're gonna have sound answers about specifically what they're talking about. So Kim and I will be back here next Friday for another I think it's app driver reaction video. That's what I'll call it.
We'll go with that.
To the TWIR podcast, which also can be found on Spotify and Apple Audio Podcasts. So in the description, I've included links to both. If you are just a YouTube watcher and you don't ever listen to audio podcast listeners, but you have Apple or Spotify on your phone, at least go give them a review. Because if you're watching it here, you're not cheating the system. You're just giving them a review, but we're just trying to get them bumped up on all the platforms. More people should be aware of what they're doing and that they're the people to contact in case of any emergency that hopefully none of you ever find yourself in. But that's what we all hope. And we know that every day a driver's in one. So you just don't know. So this is the best number to have on you. We'll see you back here next week. Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend. Be safe, earn smart, and
Kindness is always free.